Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. We've got a fabulous guest with us today, Cam Falloon, who's the founder of BFT. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Ryan. And mate, good to finally be on. We've had a few attempts, and it's great to be on and having a chat today.
Absolutely. We were supposed to get you on I think it was the last episode of the last series, and we never quite made it with time zones and so brilliant to have you on. In terms of, I guess, because you guys are quite a new concept over to the UK, it might be worth just giving people a bit of a background who Cam Falloon is, where you come from career-wise, and how you founded BFT.
Yeah, quick snapshot. Thank you. Look, I've been in the industry since I started studying in 1994. I first worked in 1995. Funnily enough, my first job in the industry was in London, in the UK. So it's great to go full circle and be talking to you today. Along the journey, I've had varied experiences from PT to doing group exercise instructing back in the day, and gym management, sales, and then eventually leading into a strength and conditioning career, working with elite athletes. Did some stuff working with Derby County soccer academies.
Oh, okay.
And then also worked in soccer in Australia, and also in the Australian Football League, which is a professional Indigenous game to Australia. So
rugby, just a lot more brutal, I think, is probably the way to describe that.
Well, it's a lot more brutal. It's a lot more brutal. It's probably, if you combined maybe the style of running in soccer with maybe a few more kilometers a game, with the physicality of rugby, but not just being head on in terms of being a 360 contact. For those that don't know the game, that's the game. So it's from a physical conditioning perspective, it's really, really challenging. And as a conditioning coach, it's a great challenge because you want to be tested. And so that's where BFT was born out of. I made a decision to leave professional sport and started doing some research in the consumer retail fitness space, which I hadn't been in for a long time, and really knew nothing about, because all of my spare time was spent at sports science conferences and strength and conditioning conferences and so on and so forth. And I guess a bit of a nerd in terms of reading research papers and those sorts of things. So I spent a bit of time just really researching the industry and finding out what's happening, who are the brands and who are the players, what's trending, what are consumers doing, and how could I then use my skill set as a conditioning coach to try and build a model that hopefully the punters would like. And I guess three key things really came out of that research. And one was that the average lifespan of a personal trainer was about 9.5 to 10 months. So
wow,
there's a problem in the industry. So how do we keep people in the industry who are paying money to invest in themselves, who want to be in the industry? How do we keep them in the industry? Part of that problem, by the way, was the high barrier to entry in terms of an investment opportunity, and then the support to then maybe run a business. So people didn't have the appetite to go and do a big box gym, huge overheads, huge risk, and a lot of people didn't have that appetite. So how could you build a sustainable model that was more palatable from a financial perspective in terms of the investment, but gave a good ROI? The other thing was programming. Again, coming from a high performance environment where everything's extremely well considered and thought through. When you're working with elite athletes, you really leave no stone unturned, and you can't afford to not have them performing at their highest level. Is how do we bring that mentality and that philosophy into commercial retail fitness, which I wasn't seeing. There's a lot of great brands and a lot of brands doing some great stuff, but I just didn't see periodization, for example, in programming and progressive training models. And an example might be that you could go into a group training, or you could go to CrossFit, and if your first session was kettlebell snatches, then you're doing kettlebell snatches, but it's quite a complex movement, and you're probably going to have a bad experience or do some damage potentially to your body. So how can we build a better model, a more sustainable model, and give people an opportunity to learn the skills, because strength training is a skill, to then have a longer journey with their fitness, much like athletes. Most professional athletes don't peak until their late 20s. So when you think about that, they're in this full-time environment. They have access to the best coaches, the best trainers, therapists, etc., and they take 7, 8, 9 years to peak. We're in an industry that sells quick fixes and this is the best workout, this is the solution, rather than having a longer term vision, a longer term approach to health and fitness. So how could we build a more sustainable model? And then the third thing was education, where it was really evident that everything was going online. And fundamentally, we're in the people business. We're here to interact with people, to serve people, to give them our best. And it's really hard to do that if you're not learning that as you're coming through and getting educated, if you're only ever doing your education online. So we now have an education vertical as part of our business. So they were the real three drivers.
Yeah, that's really interesting in terms of the education side, because if you look, even a lot of commercial clubs now, they'll hire PTs, they'll bring them into the business and then almost go, that's all we need. You've got a qualification, we've got you insured. We're good, and there's no further development. So it's really scary. And those that do have the further development tend to go outside and do it themselves, and they'll pay for themselves. Right. They'll invest. It's very rare that you get a company that invests in that person's development. So to have that as one of your verticals and one of your key core values, I think is really commendable.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, it's really simply, we're in an industry that I don't think sets trainers up for success. Obviously, the really motivated and passionate ones are going to chase it. But to your point, if you do a certification, or even you could do a 3 or 4 year uni degree and do a master's, you can't be an expert at barbell training, kettlebell training, dumbbells, cardiovascular training, using technology like heart rate, and understanding it intimately straight away. So that expectation that you talked about, that, you got your certificate and we just want you to pay rent. And so I get that from a commercial perspective, but the flip side is every 10 months they're turning over. So it's
and it's even worse now in the UK camp. The finding decent PTs now is so difficult. The amount of clubs I work with, Ryan, do you know where we can find it? And that's one of the biggest questions. And whether you're doing that as a paid PT, some of my clients they employ, or whether you're doing it as freelance, it's so difficult now to find decent PTs. So you've got to have something in your business that you're going to keep them in the business, but secondly, keep them trained and keep them improving.
Yeah, and that's where BFT, that's the whole, I guess, thought process behind a big part of the business model is, how do you keep these passionate people in the industry doing what they love? We believe that because we mandate 1 trainer per 12 participants in our classes. Again, that just comes from that high performance mentality of, I don't think it's the right thing to do to have a room of 30 or 40 people and have 1 trainer. You're not servicing your members and giving them their best. And so how do you build a model that keeps these really passionate people in the industry and gives them an opportunity to sustain a career and a lifestyle by doing what they love? And that's BFT in a nutshell. We're very good at building community. And if we can make fitness accessible and we can take people on a journey and make them feel part of a community, then I think that's going to go a long way to having a really long, sustainable business model going forward. And, I think COVID really taught us and highlighted the importance of interacting, human interaction and community. And whilst we were doing that, and other businesses, by the way, pre-COVID, CrossFit's been brilliant at building communities. It's only
I think a lot of the functional stuff, a lot of that functional stuff and sort of the BFT potentially, and even the F45s and so on, have come from originally that CrossFit idea, haven't they? But I think what you guys have done is taken the way they build community and almost stepped it up a level and sort of gone, actually, what we can do is better programming, better this, better that, but take the way they've done that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no doubt about it. There's bits that through that research I was able to see from lots of different brands, but then kept going back to, well, what have I been doing for 15 years in a high performance environment? And I guess the key thing to that is there's no compromise. Like, you can't compromise on the outcome. You've got to give it your best. It's not like periodization and these programming principles and taking, writing progressive training models is new. It's been around forever. It's not new knowledge. And and I guess that's what really stood out, Ryan, is why aren't people actually doing this? And to be honest, when we started marketing it, we found it really difficult to articulate what we're doing. And our slogan is different, better. And that was the only way we could really talk to it. And what it did was made people ask questions around, well, it's an interesting slogan, different, better. But it was very, very hard to articulate. And now you see a lot of competitors using very similar vernacular to us around progressive training and periodization and so on. And I can't make a judgment call on whether they're doing that or not. All I'll say is I'm rapt that they're using the language, and if they are, hopefully they're going to the lengths to understand it, intimately understand the science behind it, and deliver that consistently.
That's the key, isn't it? It's having that model, and I guess from the sounds of it, that's the sort of research you guys have done, you've done to take a model and sort of go, well, okay, how do we put all these principles in and make it easy or easier for the team on the grounds to deliver on a consistent basis?
Yeah, 100%. And we got kickback from even investors, who had maybe come from other brands and thought, here's an up and coming brand I want to jump on early, and wanted us to be something else, wanted us to maybe be like F45 or be like CrossFit. And we're like, no, we're BFT. And I think that's really critical, is knowing who you are. You hear these, I love hearing and reading about trends in the fitness industry, and strength training has just been announced, that one of the top 2 trends, in the world this year by the American College of Sports Medicine. And to be really honest, it hasn't dropped out of it, the top 15 or 20 global trends, hardly ever over 15 years. So if you walk into any gym in the world, anytime, 24-hour gym, you'll see a cohort of people that predominantly are running on a treadmill, or they're on the black rubber lifting weights. And all we're doing is providing a little bit more know-how, a little bit more methodology, a lot more support, and taking people on that journey, and then hopefully making it fun for them and making them feel part of a community. Because, from an exercise professional and someone who loves exercising, don't worry, I have my days where I go, oh, geez, I just can't be bothered training today. But often it's the people that bring you back to training. And it's a commitment to others. And so if you can make people feel a part of something and feel a part of a community, which is what we do really, really well, then they're going to keep coming back, regardless of how they're feeling on the day. And we're really proud that across our network of members across 7 countries, that they on average come 4 times a week, which, as you know, is significantly higher than the industry average.
And in terms of for people who don't really understand them or haven't seen your model as yet, Cam, how does it work using sort of technology and gamification to really bring the sessions alive?
Yeah, we have a really good team of people that do our programming. So we have a very specific system that we continue to evolve, but we know what BFT is and what our model is. So we don't go outside of that. And we have 13. We're just about to launch a 14th program called CrewFit, which we actually designed in 2019, but unfortunately COVID hit. So it was more around a team sort of sport team training. So we couldn't do that. But what we do is it's a very manual process. So we deliver all of our programs digitally. We have monitors around the studio that display the exercises. We build all of our own software. So again, having been exposed to a lot of great software and technology in sport, what I wanted to build was something that was extremely pliable, that allowed us to exercise with as many variables as we possibly could, rather than just being time-based as an example and saying it's 30 on, 20 off as an example. So our software allows us to do everything from time to reps to cluster sets to supersets to AMRAPs, tempo lifting, where we have timers that tell you how fast to go up and down and all the rest of it. So that's a big part of it, and that just adds so much variety and scope from a programming perspective. And so that's how it's delivered. So that comes with a comprehensive set of notes for the trainers. They get to understand the why of the program, how they all progress over an 8-week training block, how they all work in together. So how does, say, Hyper, which is sort of our functional bodybuilding program, how does that on Thursday relate to Tuesday's strength program? and we give them all that information so that our trainers are more informed. And then, because if they're more informed and they can speak to it, they're going to talk to the members. And if the members are more informed and they understand,
Absolutely.
we're empowering them to be better. And that's what good coaches do, right? Good coaches don't tell athletes and their clients what to do. What they do is they empower them to go on the journey and sort of explore it themselves and be curious. And if we can get them being curious about their training, we're a long way into sustaining them and having them for a long period of time. So
I think the great thing as well is if you're mixing technology with the knowledge of the staff, if you're engaging the staff into it and you've got the technology, you're almost hitting that Gen Z and the boomers, and you're hitting the whole generational point. So you're not sort of going, well, we just focus on this age group because this is what we do. You're able to hit them all because they've got different ways of communicating that workout with the client. I think that's
and we built our own heart rate system, and to be honest, it's probably unfair to call it just a heart rate system. It's a world first. We launched it about 18 months ago, and it was off the back of about 4 years of R&D. And we're the first company in the world to gamify strength training through heart rate. And
oh wow, okay.
What we found was that a lot of the failures with gamification, and you hear this word innovation in the industry, and I'm not sure the industry's really innovated that much in the past 20 years, to be honest. Other than obviously, when I started in 95 in the UK, Google didn't exist. So there's a lot more information out there. But what one of the common failures with technology and gamification in our space is you wear a heart rate monitor, and the harder you work, the more points you get. So at a really basic level, there's nothing wrong with that. But what if you're doing a strength day where you're doing 4 exercises, 5 sets, 3 reps with 3-minute rest periods, where your heart rate's not elevating all that much? And it's very deflating to then have a heart rate monitor in a studio and then get no reward, whatever that means.
It's quite interesting you say that, Cam, because I do some work with Vitality, the health insurance. Now, I have chronic fatigue, so I can't. So in order to earn your points for Vitality, it's all about either heart rate or steps. So obviously, I don't do a lot of cardio because of my condition, but so I'll do weight training. Obviously, weight training doesn't really, unless I'm really pushing it, but I don't get the heart rate up, just like you're saying. So you don't actually earn any points, and you sit there going, I've had an hour session, and I've not benefited at all by having that. Well, I have, obviously, I have personally. But I haven't earned any points. I haven't earned my free coffee or my free whatever from Vitality because it just doesn't register it. And you still go, well, that sort of defeats the object. So if you've managed to come away with a tool to do that, I think it's an amazing idea.
Yeah, and so again, we spent a long time understanding how do people respond, and how do they respond to our different programs. So we've built a system that only worked in our ecosystem, by the way. We couldn't sell it outside of BFT. But what it does is it gives our members a really good understanding as to the why of every program, and they understand that each day is distinctly different from the other. And as a result, the rewards program each day is distinctly different from the day before. And so it should be, because if you're targeting the aerobic system on one day and then the anaerobic system on another day, the rewards should be different because it's different programming, different rest periods, different work periods, etc. So we work really hard on that, and it's been phenomenal for us. It's been a great engagement tool. Part of that is the gamification is giving people instant rewards after a session. So we quantify the sessions, we test them, with a cohort of around 20 people before they go to studios. Everyone's wearing monitors. They get coached. So we have a nearest to the pin type approach. So within 5% of the pin for a perfect, what we measure as a perfect session, you get a gold medal, then you get a silver medal, and you get a bronze medal or no medal. And what that does is, one, gives some people some instant gratification that, okay, I've really achieved something today. It's been beneficial for me, whereas previously it's just been a more is better. And that only applied to high intensity cardio programs. So we're seeing now a more even distribution of people coming across all of our classes, and as a result, they're just getting better physical results because they're getting a nice balance.
Just out of interest, are you guys able to? Do you guys store that data not as an individual, but do you guys store that data as a company that you can use later on to see how people are working and how effective your
Absolutely.
classes are?
Yeah. We work really closely with a cohort of franchisees to say, what do you want? Like, what metrics and what reporting do you want? And this is again coming back to that high performance environment where you get exposed to the best technologies in the world to measure physical performance outcomes for athletes to determine the path forward. And I'll give you an example. Like, if you're using a GPS unit, 10 hertz, you're getting 10,000 samples a second. And that GPS unit might have a gyroscope, which is measuring rotational forces and, collisions and hits, and accelerometers as well. So, you're measuring sprint efforts and G forces on big hits in rugby or something. So how much is too much? So with all of that information, we would use it as the conditioning team and the medical team, but we'd only give the players what they needed to know from a performance perspective. And that's what we do really well. Heart rate in itself is quite complex. So how do we make it really simple and meaningful for the member? And what this allows us to do is your heart rate is your heart rate. So it's personal. This is how we personalize what we do. And I can say, well, Ryan's in today and he's doing back squats, and it's a 6 RM back squat day, and it's early in a strength cycle. So it might be just a tiny little bit more volume and a little bit less on the rest periods. And so I'll know that in the fourth set that you might hit 75% of your max heart rate based on reps and rest periods and tempo, because we've tested it. And so really simply, if you're in the studio and you're the trainer, all you have to look up on the exercise screen is that's the exercise. We're in our fifth set or fourth set. Whoever's back squatting should be in that 70 to 80% zone. And if they're not, as an example, it's really simple, right? One, you should know your members. So how's Ryan, how's he feeling? Has he got any injuries, and does he move well? Has he been exposed to squatting, and should he be able to elicit his capacity in a back squat? If the answer is sort of yes to all those things, then it's a quick, hey mate, how you feeling? And if you say, yeah, I'm good. Okay, well, let's put 5 kilos on the bar. What that's going to do is slow you down, right? A little bit more load, put more time under tension, which allows your heart rate to spike. And as a result, you're getting a better outcome, right? And then, so we've made that really, really simple, but there's a lot of complexity behind it. And then to your question is being able to, from the head office level, but also from a franchisee level, to go in and use it as a business tool. So, most studios have 5 trainers. What trainers get the most amount of medals? Which means they're coaching to the program. And then you can compare all the heart rate graphs. So are they actually coaching how it's meant to be coached, or are they cheating?
Oh, wow.
And the ones that aren't, you might sometimes see that everyone has a bias. So some can train strength really, really well because that's what they're experienced in and that's their background. Others might be really good at cardio. So there's the opportunity, right? If Cam's not as good at cardio as he is coaching strength, then let's develop him and upskill him. And if Ryan's really good at cardio, then let's put them together and let's get Cam to shadow Ryan, and Ryan can take the lead on the cardio classes, and Cam just needs now to have a mandate to still get his hands dirty, but just listen and learn and observe.
Okay? And I guess that's the great point about having 1 to 12, because probably more often than not, you're always going to need that doubling up, because I can imagine more than often your classes are busier than just 12 people in them. So you're always going to have that doubling up.
Yeah, we have the capacity for 36. So again, we want high touch points with our members. They're paying good money, and we want it to be personal. And we feel like we are as good, if not better value than personal training, because of what we offer from a programming perspective, from a technology perspective, and then obviously the coaching in studio experience and community perspective. So, for the price of one PT session, or less than the price of one PT session, you can come unlimited sessions to BFT, and you can go to any studio in the world. So, it was great. I was just in Singapore on my way through to South Korea and dropped into the High Rocks event, and was talking to one of our franchisees who said, "Oh, hey, I'm doing the event and I'm jumping on a plane tonight. I'm heading to the UK." So I took a photo with him, sent it to Charlie and Lauren at Battersea, and then Tuesday morning or Monday afternoon or something, he was in Battersea training. So
Wow.
It's great to be able to see that global community is growing and that value.
But it's also great they can do that, knowing they can turn up and they'll know the workouts. So they're almost not turning up blind. They're sort of going. It's not the fact that it's just the same thing at the same place. It's almost going, yes, I know I'm getting this. It's Tuesday. This is what I'm getting. It's Thursday. This is what I'm getting. And I think from that point of view, because there are other obviously companies where you can go and use different clubs, but quite often they're different. So you're going in, it's the kit's sort of the same, but you're not getting the same experience at every club. When I guess what you guys have done is gone, we want everybody's experience to be the same, whether it's on the Gold Coast, Australia, or it's in Battersea. We want that experience to be the same.
100%, and that comes down to supporting the network and providing them the tools to be successful, and making sure that they're supported from a back end business sales marketing perspective, but also in the core product and the training element. It's like Macca's. People know they shouldn't eat McDonald's, but when you're traveling and you're on the road and you see the golden arches, what is consistency. And that whilst you shouldn't be eating it, that it's going to be consistent no matter where you are in the world.
I haven't been to our one in Keighley. That's not, but that's a different story. But what the point you're saying, because I've worked with quite a few franchises, and one thing that tends to let them down is the fact that head office support isn't as strong. So it starts out as this is what you'll get, and then over time it becomes less and less and less and less. And I think what's coming across is the core principle of what everybody gets, that support, and that's how we're going to grow by keeping that core value.
Yeah, look, our core value in our business, and I guess the thing that we would want people to say about us, because as franchisor, franchisee, and even employees, you're not going to agree on everything, but we'd like to think that people would say that we're fair. And so we try and have that at the forefront of our mind in everything we do, because there's three critical people or cohorts in this relationship, and it's the franchisee, their members, and then us as the franchisor. So if we're not supporting the franchisee to be successful and to giving them the tools to give the members the best member experience, then they're not going to have the members. If they don't have the members, they don't have a business. If they don't have a business, we don't have a business. So it's a very simple relationship.
I think everybody thinks the same though, Cam, but I promise you, having worked with quite a few franchises, that's not always the theory that it works on. You'd be quite surprised. It's almost like the franchise sees the cash cow, and that's how it's seen. But it's nice to see you have a different approach.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But we've done things, and in our franchising contracts where we've capped fees, that we've modeled out what we need to have as a franchisor. And if franchisees have businesses that are shooting the lights out, and they've got 500 members paying $70 a week, then we feel it's fair that they get the balance of that upside.
The great thing that happens then? If they've got a club doing that, they buy the second, they buy the third, they buy their fourth, they buy their fifth, they become millionaires, and suddenly you've got this business that's flying with less franchisees, and the family grows better, doesn't it? Because as a business, you're better off having less franchisees, but all with multiple sites, because that's far easier for you guys to manage than it is having 1,000 clubs with 1,000 franchisees.
We have bigger territories. We base our territories off some specific metrics. So on average, they're probably 30% to 40% larger in size in terms of the exclusive marketing zone than our competitors. And again, we think that's fair. You hear about a lot of brands that when they start to get traction and they see success coming, that they start, reducing that exclusive marketing zone, and then people within the same brand feel like they're competing against each other. We want our people feeling like they want to work with each other and support each other. And so to give you an idea, whether it's Anytime Fitness or F45 in Australia, there's somewhere around 550 to 600 franchises in Australia, in the Australian market, and we will cap out at 350.
Okay.
We just think it's the right thing to do, to your point. It's fair for the franchisees. It allows us to support fewer people at a higher level. But again, if we've got happy franchisees that are successful, then you're focusing on the really positive things and moving forward all the time, rather than troubleshooting and dealing with unhappy constituents. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we want to focus on moving forward and continuing to.
And who's your ideal franchisee? Do you guys have a specific sort of client that you're looking for that you feel is best suited for your product?
We're probably 50-50. We're about 50-50 in terms of owner operator. So that, you know, the PT background, so someone who's working in the business, to the pure investor who has maybe bought multiple sites and is putting in a manager and employees. So that, I guess that's the beauty of the model. It works both ways. Probably a slight skew in terms of performance towards the owner operator. Like you can't replace, you know, essentially they're the founder in their business and they're so passionate
You can't
about
replace
it.
that passion on the gym floor, can you? That's the thing.
No, you can't. And probably early in their journey, they're emotionally, they need a little bit more support, because they're not potentially not necessarily, you know, that really genuine entrepreneurs, and hence they're buying a franchise. But that's our job. Our job is to support them and provide the infrastructure and the backbone for them to be successful. So it's awesome to see people who have, you know, backed themselves in, who love the industry and love working with people. You know, Charlie and Lauren in Battersea are great examples where Charlie, who's on the floor and running it, and Loz supports him in the back end. Great people, super passionate. You know, Charlie's done the corporate thing and just went, I want to work with people and I want to change their lives. And so when you step onto the floor at Battersea in London, you feel it. Like you can't. It's very hard to replicate that. And that's what we try and do. And I think if people feel supported and they're feeling like they're on a journey, which is what we want to take them on as investors and trainers, then that eventually comes through, right? If you're not feeling supported,
you can't buy passion, unfortunately, especially in this industry. There's quite a few that I've seen over the years that do it just for the money, and you can tell it doesn't work. And it doesn't. They get relative success, but I think the ones that get real success are those ones that genuinely believe they can change lives, that genuinely want to be on that floor, and even the ones that step away and almost have two or three, so they're more of an investment overlooking. They still have that passion. They still walk into the club and go, "I want to train. I want to take this session," and I love seeing that. I think it's why we're in the industry. It's why we all joined. And if people can keep that, I think, and if you guys with what you do as a franchisee can keep that excitement going, I think that's a great thing. Now there's a couple of things in terms of you guys. Big move this year. You guys hooked up with High Rocks. So now, obviously, we were going to try and get Graham on as well to talk through it. But obviously, talk us through what all that's about, because I think it's an amazing link up. I love High Rocks. I can't do it, but I do love High Rocks. But I think it's a really interesting collaboration that you guys have put together. So what's the thought behind it? Where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been a really quick relationship in terms of formalizing it. We have some digital marketing partners in Europe, and they got in contact with one of our business partners and our global CEO, Richard Burnett, and had a chat about just, you know, us entering the European market and what we're doing in Spain and Netherlands and other countries, and High Rocks came up. And I'd never heard of it. Richard never heard of it. And then a couple of our staff over in Spain and the UK, Liz and Di, also mentioned it. And so Rich got on an initial call with Christian and one of his team at High Rocks, which led to a follow-up call with Rich and I and their team. And I literally spent probably 90 minutes pre-call doing some research. So I'd never heard of it. And it really struck me straight away. One, that I really liked the concept. Two, that it was a really good fit for us. So they were using same equipment, similar exercise movements. And the thing I liked about it, and this is probably the high performance mind, is that it's a standardized event. And so it's an event that it's indoor, so it's controlled. It's standardized, which means it's measurable and it's repeatable. So you're eliminating all these variables where people can do an event and then get a time or a result. But how do you compare that to the previous time? So if you're doing Spartan racing as an example, which is a great event, by the way, and I'm not saying anything other than that. But they're not standardized,
doesn't it? And what's involved on the day.
Yeah, it's whatever's on the day, and it's the venue, and it's not standardized. So, and there's also no real strong correlation between what you're doing in a gym environment to the actual Spartan race. So I think the team at High Rocks have done a phenomenal job, and I know Christian, the CEO and co-founder, probably doesn't like me saying it. But what I love is the simplicity of it. I know there's a lot of logistical complexities to get the event up and going, and I mean a lot, but it's such a well-run event. You know what you're getting. And so we had a really, really fruitful discussion, getting to know each other and understanding each other's businesses and philosophies and values. And it became really apparent that we were very, very aligned. I mean, really quickly. And at the end of that call, Christian proposed that we look into potentially a global partnership. And I guess the synergies were not just from a business perspective and values, but High Rocks are really well developed, having been born out of Germany in Europe. So they've got a huge following over there. They've got huge events, 8,000-10,000 people attending them. And they're wanting to come to Asia Pacific, where we have a big presence. So they could leverage off us on this side of the world, and we could potentially leverage off them on their side of the world if we could collaborate and form a really, hand in glove type relationship. So it's been really good. We've learned a lot of lessons off the first few events in the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands. There's another one coming up in the UK soon, and we just had the first 3 events in Asia Pacific. So Sydney,
Wow.
Sydney, Melbourne, Singapore, and through our network and BFT. So we're the official High Rocks performance partner. So if you want to come and do official High Rocks training and prepare for the events, we're the partner of choice, and we're the only gym in Asia Pacific that can say that they're the official High Rocks performance partner. And we've worked really close with their team. So in the lead up to the events, we do a 10-week High Rocks specific training cycle. We have High Rocks training within our 8-week training cycles, and they're periodized and progressed in our regular training cycles now, ongoing. And what we saw was this really awesome outcome. In Sydney, we had where we don't have it. We're growing in our presence in Sydney. Where we were born in Melbourne as a brand. There was about just over 2,000 participants in Sydney for the first event. Just under 500. Yeah, just 25% of those were BFT people. And then 2 weeks later, the event came to Melbourne, and there was 3,200 participants, of which just over 2,000 were BFT people. So I think straight away, High Rocks saw the benefit of the relationship with us. Our members were loving it. It adds a little bit to our programming. It takes people again on the journey. So now they've got our programming, and they've got the gamification and the accountability with our heart rate system, and also things like our benchmark challenges where we do strength testing. But now they've got an area and a realm where they can express that. They can go and.
I was going to say they've also got that area of elitism and competition and everything else if they wanted to take it to that level. So those that just want to come in and train and get fit and have that side of it and enjoy the sessions can. Those that want to take it to the next level, because it's pretty much a sport now, although it's not officially classified as a sport. It is a sport. I mean, you look at these big events.
It is, and I like that about it. I mean, they have the elite men's and the elite women's, but they've got relays. Where you can do it in teams of 4, or you can do it in pairs and doubles, and so I love the fact that it's targeted to the everyday gym goer. But if you want to compete, you can compete, and
it's almost like doing a marathon, isn't it? In the sense of, because I used to do a few triathlons and stuff when I was younger, and I can remember a guy who used to compete for the British team. He said to me, Ryan, just remember, you're never going to win it. And I was in my mid-30s, so he's like, you're never going to win that event. And I was like, that's a bit harsh. And he was like, well, you have to remember, you have 3 kids, you have a job to do. That guy who wins it, he's single. He trains 3 or 4 hours a day, does all this. So, and it was basically saying, so just know you play. But what it meant was I could compete with myself, still enjoy it. And High Rocks is a bit like that. You can either go that elitism and go, I'm going to win it, I'm going to put everything into it and go and do it. But even just the competing and finishing it is a bit like running the London Marathon or completing a triathlon. The actual completing it is in itself a journey and a competition. So it doesn't have to be that you stood there on the podium with a gold medal. It's 100%. The actual competing of it is as much about, and that's why the London Marathon and everything's so popular, because it's just literally getting through it and getting to the end. It's not.
Well, and that's you're 100% right. We were in Singapore, where again we had 2,000 BFT people there out of 3,500 in Singapore, which was great. We had a huge recovery centre, so it was awesome for all of our BFT people to get together as a community. But what was interesting was we were seeing people from Melbourne, Sydney, New Zealand Hong Kong coming to Singapore under the BFT banner, which was brilliant. So to your point, I think it'll become the Ironman or the marathon of the fitness world, of the gym world, let's call it, because you can train for this in a normal gym. Most gyms have rowers and ski ergs and sleds, and you can run on treadmills and you can do lunges and so on. So I really love when I talk about the simplicity and not discounting the complexity of the event. That's what I love about it, is that I think it's really relational. People can see, I can do that. I actually do. So I do 80% of those things at the gym. Now it's just giving them a little bit more purpose and focus. And I've seen one of our franchisees, Dan Murphy, he qualified for the World Championships in Nice in France for the over 50 category. And he was that excited, and so good to see. And I've been following him on Instagram and watching him now train. He's really upped his training. And brilliant. Like, I don't see any downside to it, and that's come out of our relationship.
And there's no bigger brand ambassador for you guys for that sort of thing to be happening, not just at the event, but just those people on social media and everything else performing at that level when probably they hadn't even thought about competing at all before. It was just literally we're turning up the club, we're doing it, get into something, then suddenly they love it so much that they're competing on the world stage, and it's I think that's amazing for your brand.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and it's in our infancy. Certainly when it was announced, and after the events in Melbourne and Sydney, the Hyrox team were saying their phones were ringing, and a lot of people were, one, jealous, but two, wanting to get the opportunity that we had. And we're really grateful that Christian and the team from Hyrox saw a lot of synergies with our business model. They understood it, and they saw the complexities that went into the back end of it, much like their events, but they saw the simplicity of how the product's delivered and the quality of how the product's delivered, and using science and best practice to give people the best results and experiences, and that's what they're doing. So we're early in our journey, but it's really, really, really exciting, and we're hoping that especially in the UK with an event coming up, we've just had an ambassador who does a bit of work with BFT, who's a Hyrox athlete. He's an Australian, James Kelly. He just won an event in Europe. He was the first ever Hyrox athlete to win an event on his first ever event, which was in the UK last year. So he's heading back to the UK, and James is really excited to be part of the BFT community. And again, he's in it because he loves what we do and loves how we program. As an athlete, he wants to learn himself and grow, and he was super interested in how we did our programming and education. And so it's great to be, in a business that's, I guess it's getting validated by people who are, at the elite level around the world. And, from the people who run Hyrox validating it by saying, of all the gyms in the world, you're the ones that we want to partner with, to now Hyrox athletes saying the same.
It's pretty special as well. Because I mean, how long has BFT been going?
I launched initial studios in 2016 as pilot studios, but we didn't franchise until 2018. So
5 years, 6 years, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a really young franchise. So to be in the position you're in at the moment. So in terms of growth, where are you guys going? What's the what's the plan? I mean, obviously you've jumped into the UK now. We were talking earlier in Spain. So what's the plans?
Yeah, we're just exploring. So Rich and I have just spent a pretty intense period of time traveling to different parts of the world and exploring different market opportunities. We get on the ground and do market diligence and walk the streets and talk to business owners. And we're not a company that wants to be in 50 countries around the world with 3 units. We don't think that that's good for anyone. So we'd rather go narrower and deeper with our focus. So we're assessing around 7 different regions at the moment. We'll probably do 2, maybe 3. But a big part of what we're doing is resourcing up and consolidating our existing territories. Obviously, we're new in the UK. We're about to launch in Spain, and we've got some really good partners that are first to market over there. So it's really important that we get that market right. And whilst we've been on the ground and we've done a lot of diligence, there's still a lot of lessons to be learned. So we've just put on a regional franchise performance manager to go across Spain and the UK, whilst we only have a handful of studios, to make sure they're getting support from a head office perspective, along with our sales team in those regions. And Hong Kong's just taking off, Malaysia's kicking off. We look like probably selling out of New Zealand and Singapore in the next sort of 6 months. And Australia's probably 74% sold out. So it's consolidating those regions and making sure that we're continually innovating and supporting our franchisees and building communities, and having, initiatives and partnerships like High Rocks to keep people engaged, and then exploring one or two, as I said, new regions to dip the toe in the water and see if it works.
And do you think the fitness market, in terms of its growth, is going to look at more businesses like yours, that sort of boutique, that higher end market, or where do you think the growth is going to come?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what we've seen a little bit is there's definitely consolidation happening around the world. Obviously we come under the Exponential banner now, and there's a consolidation of brands. I think that big box market's always going to be there, but and I think the group training and, if you want to call it the boutique sector, is definitely going to continue to rise and boom. And I think the mid-market might suffer a little bit, so I think you're going to go to either end of the extremes. People are sort of going to go to the lower cost 24-hour sort of facility, whether that's a big box or an Anytime or a Jets or something. But the mid-market might suffer, and the industry goes in cycles. People they want service. They feel like they've had enough service. They can do it themselves. They go and do it themselves. They go, I don't like this on my own. Now I want to go back again. So our opportunity is to keep them engaged and keep them informed. And, we talked about trends, and strength training is, I think one of the big trends in the world should be just do the basics right and execute it consistently at a high level. And we really try to do that. We really try to be as consistent as we can. And that's a challenge in a franchise model. So, in terms of where the industry is going, for the models that are really scaling is how do you get consistency? And, there's a lot of new brands coming into our space, which is a really, really good thing. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out. Some are wanting to expand and grow really quickly and are doing master franchise agreements around the world. And whilst it's not the approach that we would take for various reasons, hopefully they're successful.
With the master franchise stuff, do you do that at all, or is it literally you guys are the franchise and you just open up sites around the world? Do you guys have a?
No, we do it. We're not currently doing it anywhere in any region around the world, but we're having discussions with some countries at the moment, and predominantly based off the countries that Rich and I go to and do our research is what are the cultural difficulties and nuances, what are the local laws and how aligned are they? So an example is the UK. It's English speaking. The laws are very similar to Australia from an employment law perspective, franchising law, repatriation of money is easy. So there's a lot of synergies. And so that we feel like, we've got the resources and the systems, the team and the processes to enter that market and support it directly versus, say, Taiwan. A lot of different challenges in Taiwan, biggest one being that's predominantly non-English speaking. So we are currently having some discussions with some people around, are they the right fit to enter into discussions around taking on the MFA? And then what does that look like in terms of how do we support one person or a group to then take the brand and run it in that country? So that's a new opportunity for us. Again, we have a saying, we want to grow and we want to expand, but we don't want to get a speeding ticket along the way. So, it's take our time.
It's doing it in the right way, isn't it? What you don't want to do is overstretch and then find yourself in a position like some of the others have, where they're having to now scale back a bit to then go forward again. It's that sort of thing. Do it right, and you can just keep going forward, can't you, and drive it. It's definitely the way forward. Now, one final question, Cam, because we've had you on for nearly an hour now, which is brilliant for us and our listeners. In terms of what inspires you, because obviously sounds like you had a great career from a sporting and development perspective. What inspires you to do what you do every day?
Helping people. That's why I got in the industry back in 1994, 95, and that's why BFT exists. Is to it was built to provide opportunities for people, be it investors and trainers, or give members a better experience and take them on a journey. And the goal In 2017, Ryan, I took on investment. So my current business partners, as I mentioned, Richard Burnett, who's our global CEO, and Hamish McLaughlin, who's a silent business partner. But they asked the question about, where did I think we could take this business? And I said, I think we can do 1,000 studios around the world. And
Wow.
I think they probably thought I was a bit crazy at the time. And so the answer to that, which answers your question, is, if we could do that and achieve that together, then we're having a really, really small positive influence on the global industry. And that was always my goal. Is I've been very fortunate to have a great career over nearly 30 years and work with a lot of brilliant people in different countries around the world and different environments. And when I reflected on the times that I was the most happiest, it was when I was the fittest. I was in a really good physical condition, but people were investing in me and taking interest in me in the industry and supporting me. And so that's why BFT exists. Change people's lives, put a smile on their face, and improve their quality of life. And if we can do that, then I'm as happy as anything.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to ask you one final question. What's the top sport? What's the top sport that you've worked in that you went, actually, that's the one I really enjoyed the most?
Well, it's clearly it's really interesting. I had an experience sort of doing a little bit of work with exercise rehabilitation in the NFL.
Okay.
Helping some colleagues with some rehab stuff. And that's the sport I don't know. So I really don't know it. But it's really different to AFL footy or soccer, as an example. Soccer for me, I really love because it was foreign to me, even though it's played in Australia. I'm an Aussie rules guy, and it's certainly, from a conditioning perspective, it's a lot easier, just because you don't have the brutal contact nature of what AFL is. But from an athletic perspective, they're so much more pure. You're working with the best of the best of the best in the world. And Australian footballers are such awesome athletes, but the reality is there's 750 odd in Australia, and that's it. And so whilst they are genuinely elite athletes and phenomenal, so I got so much enjoyment out of soccer. It's a smaller team that you work with, so it's half the size of squad of what you do in the AFL, so it's a lot closer. And being, I think, part of a global game gives you a very different perspective and a lens on things.
Yeah.
But from a challenging perspective and testing your skill set, AFL football's, for me, probably the most demanding sport in the world to be a conditioning coach in.
I think it's one of the most demanding sports. I mean, they'd have it on Sky over here now, so on a Saturday morning you can watch it, and it's just you like going, that is just mine. I'm surprised any of them make it to 50, let alone because they do take lumps out of each other playing that sport. It is good to watch, but not for me to play, but it's good to watch. But really appreciate your time today, Cameron. So what we'll do is we'll put all your details at the end of the podcast. So if anybody does want to get in touch with you or your team, all the details will be there. We really appreciate your time today, Cameron. It's been fascinating. Obviously, over in the UK, we've only seen a few of your sites, so it's great to understand more. And I know, by the sounds of things, there's going to be a lot more coming over the next few years. So we look forward to seeing those. But really, thank you for your time, and hopefully we will speak again soon.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the opportunity, and it was a fun chat. I appreciate it.